Hey everyone, it's Paul and Carolyn McElraith, and we thought we'd just come on here and just take a moment to encourage you a little bit. Our hearts have been around married couples these days, especially in the midst of this isolation, and we are isolated. Tell them where we are.
We are at our cottage in Port Franks.
And the reason we're here, the first 4 weeks or so of this, I was in the office in London. Carolyn and actually our younger son, DJ, came up to the cottage. DJ's got asthma, and so they just wanted to get away while this whole thing was going on, and we weren't sure what would happen. And then I was going into North Park for the first 4 weeks. And then our daughter, who works in the hospital as a nurse, she's since moved into our house in London, and therefore I moved out of there just to give her space, and I've moved up to the cottage. So now we find ourselves, 3 of us,
self-isolating together.
In the cottage, which creates all sorts of dynamics.
A lot of dynamics.
So my week doesn't look a lot different, except that I'm not going into North Park every day. I go in on Wednesdays where I record the message, but throughout the rest of the week I'm prepping sermons, and I've been doing some funerals and doing a lot of Skype and Zoom calls with counseling and other meetings. But tell them what you do when you're up here.
And I'm also working from home. I'm teaching online through Skype and FaceTime. So we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out working at home together.
So you may be watching this, and maybe you're at home and you've got both a husband and wife working out of the home, and maybe you've got 3 young kids, and you're trying to balance teaching them and balance everything else on top of that. So you may say, well, it's just Carolyn and I, but like I said, we have our 24-year-old son with us. It's a little different dynamic. He's a master's student, and so he's also been involved in writing his thesis and marking some exams for his students. So we've had to learn how to get along together in a confined space, and I think for the most part we've been able to manage.
We have managed. We've had to learn to give each other space and to extend grace.
So how do we give each other space?
So we each find our own little spot to do our work and have our Zoom calls. We have to figure that out. So that's the space piece. And the grace piece is just being super understanding in a time when we're all a little stretched.
But I'm understanding. You don't have any problem with me, do you? I think one of the biggest things we've learned through this is the whole idea of communication, especially given the fact that we're on different calls and we're using internet, and we've got 3 different schedules. So one thing that we've really tried to do is communicate well what's going on through our week, and that hasn't come without some of its little ups and downs for sure. You said grace and space. So how do you get space when you need it?
So probably early on, because I think we're finishing our 7th week here. So for myself and my son. And I think when Paul came and joined us,
it was wonderful.
It was wonderful, yeah. But I was anxious one day. I mean, I've experienced a bit of anxiety throughout this pandemic, not being able to see my other children and whatnot, as we all have. And I just needed to get out. I wanted to go for a bike ride. My tire was flat, and so I decided to go for a walk. And Paul wanted to join me, and I didn't want him to join me because I needed my space. And he was great. He was gracious about that. He let me go and do my walk. Came back, I felt a lot better. So small example, but space and grace, I think, are 2 key components for us, right?
And I think what we want to encourage you with is just this whole communication piece, especially if you have kids at home. When in your marriage, if you just get a chance, take 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day and see if you can turn in toward one another and just do a spiritual and a relational pulse and see how things are going and just talk things through. And as Carolyn said, it's okay to take space too, to just be honest and share with one another that you need time. And whatever that space can look like for you. We're fortunate at the cottage where there's not many people around, so we can go for walks. But what does space look like for you? I think what we'd love to do is we'd love to try and jump on here every week and just do a little 5 or 6 minute thing, just what we're learning. But what we want to encourage you to do is to feel free to email me. So that's paul.mcelraith at northpark.ca. And we'd love to hear just what are some of the things that you're doing? How is your marriage doing through this time of isolation, and just some things you're learning, ways that you're growing, or maybe questions that you have. And like I said, Carolyn and I are not experts. We're practitioners. We've got a lot of experience, and we work hard on our marriage, but we learn a lot of things as we move through this too. So would you email questions, email any comments and things about marriage? And we'd love to address those as we share just some of the things that we're learning as well. Does that sound all right?
Sounds great.
All right.
Let's help each other during this time.
Yeah, and just know that when Carolyn and I walk, we pray, and we're praying for you. So bless you guys. Just stay the course.